the board chairperson of Ipswich, Honorable Augustus, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the National Bank of Ethiopia for co-organizing the Ethiopian Digital Payment Conference, the first edition in collaboration with other partners. This event brings together stakeholders from various sectors to exchange insights and strategize on effectively harnessing digital advancements. Ipswich, the national switch in Ethiopia, is playing a major role in digitizing the Ethiopian payment system and enhancing financial inclusion. Ipswich has achieved significant milestones in creating interoperability, setting up the domestic payment scape, implementing the national payment gateway, and providing the shared platforms and infrastructure to financial institutions. This advancement is set to expedite the digitization of payments, creating cash-light society and significantly enhancing efficiency in financial transactions. I firmly believe that this two-day conference holds immense potential for advancing Ethiopia's digital finance landscape. It serves as a crucial platform for knowledge exchange, collaboration, and strategic partnerships. Drawing insights from experiences of other countries and regions underlines the importance of collaboration in strengthening our digital payment ecosystem. The National Payment Corporation of India is a prime example of entities that have leveraged collaboration to enhance payment systems in India. We can also consider other examples of different countries that achieved a lot in the digitizing their financial systems. Mainly we can mention India's, Pakistan's, Brazil's, South Africa's, Ghana's, and Malaysia's practical experience that show the necessity of collaborative efforts to enhance the Ethiopian digital payments landscape. As we embark on this journey, I invite all stakeholders, that is banks, microfinance institutions, payment instrument issuers, payment system operators, and regulatory entities, use case providers, as well as any other entity with a stake in Ethiopia, Ethiopia's financial future, to join hands and contribute to our collective success. Finally, I would like to extend my appreciation to the National Bank of Ethiopia, UNCDF, and Better Than Cash Alliance for their substantial contributions in making this event possible. Of course, we cannot overlook the invaluable role played by Ipswich in bringing the Ethiopian Digital Payment Conference to happen. Last but not least, I extend my gratitude to all participants for your valuable contributions and insights which have enriched our discussions and made this event truly vibrant and engaging. Thank you very much.
Next up, I would like to invite Ato Salamon Desta. Mr. Salamon Desta is a distinguished financial leader currently serving as the Vice Governor of Financial Institutions at the National Bank of Ethiopia. Prior to his current role, Mr. Salamon served as the Director of Banking Supervision for over 7 years, where he demonstrated exceptional leadership and a keen understanding of regulatory frameworks. Beyond his responsibilities at the National Bank, Mr. Salamon Desta has also assumed the role of Chairman of Ipswich Board of Directors, representing the National Bank of Ethiopia. So please help me in welcoming Mr. Salamon Desta to the stage.
morning. His Excellency Atulabas Hadis, CEO of Ethiopia, Honorable Gustus, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the second day of this special gathering that brings together key players from the financial sector. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all of you for your invaluable contributions to yesterday's session. Your expertise, insights, and passion for your respective fields were truly inspiring and made the event vibrant and engaging. Very important issues were raised yesterday, some of which are policy support, data protection, literacy, education, cyber attacks and security, fraud-related issues, financial inclusion, outreach and access, collaboration, infrastructure-related issues, innovation, responsible financial services, especially digital financial services, consumer protection, literacy, awareness, and so on, interoperability, confidence, trust in the financial system, in the digital financial services, particularly, credit reference bureau role, movable collateral registry related roles, use cases, business continuity, monitoring fiat currency, pricing, fees, charges, and many others. Really, in a bid to create cashlight and inclusive economy, all these concepts are very important. And I also particularly grateful for our company, our organization, the National Bank of Ethiopia, the Ipswich and the BTCA for their support. All the parties did an incredible job. Master of ceremonies, moderators, and panelists, I would like to thank everyone for their really fantastic job. Yesterday marked an important milestone in the Ethiopian digital payment landscape with the launch of an interoperable Ethiopian QR code. This development promises to revolutionize the way business transactions are conducted and secured, and represents a significant step forward for the country's financial ecosystem. With the introduction of this standardized payment method, merchants in Ethiopia can now accept payments from customers using an interoperable Ethiopian QR code, regardless of the customer's bank or payment provider. The initiative not only simplifies the payment process, but also promotes financial inclusion by making digital transactions more accessible to a broader population segment. By leveraging QR code technology, which is both secure and convenient, Ethiopia is poised to unlock new opportunities for economic growth, drive digital adoption, and enhance the efficiency of its payment infrastructure. Over the past few years, Ethiopia's payment system has undergone significant transformations driven by technological advancements, regulatory reforms, and efforts to promote financial inclusion. One of the major initiatives that marked a momentous step forward towards reducing cash dependency and promoting financial inclusion was the country's first national digital payment strategy and introduction of the national switch, which enabled digital payment interoperable and seamless. Ladies and gentlemen, it can be said that Ethiopia achieved high economic growth due to a favorable government policies. Privatization in the telecom sector and increased participation in the financial sector. The Ethiopian financial system is undergoing a digital transformation that is changing the way financial services are being offered and consumed. And going digital is no longer a luxury, but a necessity. Today's event will focus on instant payments, gender inclusion, and responsible digital payments for the public sector. I am confident that the session will be useful and the discussions with the panelists will bring new ideas and insights. In conclusion, I wish you all very productive discussions today. I am confident that they will guide our efforts in taking the national digital payment agenda forward. I thank you.
Up next, we have the first presentation of the day. It's going to be on interoperable payment ecosystems. Our presenter is going to be Ato Ebenezer Wendosen. He's currently serving as the Director of Program Management Office at ET Switch. He brings over 9 years of experience in digital payments in digital payment, fintech, strategic planning, product development, business development, operations, business partnership, and public management, backed by a strong technical skill. So please help me in welcoming Ebenezer to the stage for the first presentation of the day.
Good morning. Am I audible? Okay. All right. 12 years of experience. Okay. So, yeah. I'm going to take you through to the interoperable payment ecosystems in Ethiopia and what we do in as an ET Switch. So, so my agenda, Maina just told me that I only have 5 minutes, but my presentation has 7 sections. If we have time, we can discuss on each of every slides, but I don't think so I can make it in 5 minutes. 5 more? All right. So who we are, I think everyone in this room know who is ET Switch. We are the national switch owned by all private bankers, public, and the National Bank of Ethiopia. That includes microfinance institutions, PIIs, and PSOs. And we do have a mission. Our mission is making payments simple and as much as possible affordable as possible it can be. Our mandates and our core services are, as you can see on the right side. We focus on creating interoperable environment between all financial institutions, and we are very much successful making ATMs interoperable, POS interoperable, and now as we all enjoy P2P, we also very much successful on making online interoperability. The second mandate we have is introducing and implementing a domestic payment scheme. We all know Ethiopia, the card scheme, and we launched QR scheme yesterday. And the third mandate we have is providing a national payment gateway, and we just recently implemented a payment gateway that can connect with the international players, and at the same time we accept domestic cards, cards and other means of payments. And we also serve as a central interconnectivity for clearing and settlements. These four areas are our major mandates, and the fifth one it's our core services we provide for financial institutions for easing the lives of our clients. So we provide platforms and infrastructures as a service. We do have different kinds of platforms and infrastructures that we provide for the financial ecosystem. So we began to first in 2018 the modernization of the national payment strategy. That's by the time when Switch becomes taking shape or becomes in the picture of everyone. So after the introduction of the national payment modernization strategy, the need for Switch come into the point, and we established ourselves in 2011 with all financial institutions. And on 2016, we first launched our first product, which is ATM interoperability, the Ethiopia card scheme, and the hosting service we started with I think six or five financial institutions. All financial institutions again signed the participant agreement, the scheme ruled, developed and signed with everyone. In 2020, the POS interoperability, we launched POS interoperability, we finalized the 5-year strategy, we began or kicked off the real-time payment project. We later on called it the grand project that we have. And in 2021, we started P2P. We also awarded for the implementation of the instant payment switch, the payment gateway, and the shared channel. In 2022, this grand project has been kicked off. So we launched National Payment Gateway in a card-based back in 2020-23, and we recently launched instant payment switch with the P2P, and yesterday, as of yesterday, we started the QR in instant payment rail. So we will also launch other use cases products that will be enabled in instant payment switch. So our success stories, as you can see from the graph, since 2018, number of transactions has tremendously has been grown in terms of volume, in terms of value. As you can see, in 2022, we had 71 million ATM transactions, and in terms of value, we had 80.8 billion worth of value of BRR has been transacted. And when you come to P2P transactions on 2022-2023, we had close of 14,000 transactions. By the way, in 2024, our target is 50,000 on P2P. And in terms of value, in 2023, it was 113 billion worth of value has been transacted. When you come to POS in 2023, it has around close to a million transactions, close to 970,000 transactions. So in terms of value, it's more than 2.5 billions. So I think today's session is about interoperability, and as you can see on the screen, this is the common site today in Ethiopia. We sometimes call it ATM parks. So simply put, it is an investment of infrastructures which is resulting in inefficiencies and added costs for all financial institutions instead of utilizing a shared transactional systems. signifying that Ethiopia is still under a cash economy, which is actually another impediment to a digital and transparent economy. So it has its own impact in the areas of the financial inclusion in Ethiopia over the last years, as we witnessed. So the solution for all of this duplication of investment is, that we witness all around the country, is interoperability, because interoperability will ensure the seamless transactions, allowing payments from anyone to be transacted for any of the financial institutions, with any of the financial institutions. We can witness global best practices. That interoperability brought into the market. The first is interoperability will open participation for all digital financial service providers. It enables multiple use cases in the system. It's also consultative and regulation and support based. We can mention SEPI in Mexico. It's an instant payment system that allows bank and non-bank digital financial service providers to participate in the system. Also, the Egypt interbank mobile payment systems. It's an interoperable ecosystem allowing multiple use cases to be enabled, such as cash in and cash out at agents, P2P transfers, bulk payments, and merchant acceptances. And we can also look into the Jomo Pay. It's a central bank and National Payment Council of Jordan jointly led effort that shows that there is interoperability encourages collaboration and working together. So you know, in each of these economies, as we can see, interoperability significantly improved the utility of digital financial services by making digital money more widely acceptable. And as digital money become widely acceptable, it will encourage digital liquidity and reduce dependency on cash in the country. So interoperability also has numerous benefits. The first one is it expands opportunity across the payment sector for service providers, businesses, and individuals. For example, financial service providers will be benefited because they can reduce duplication of investments, and businesses and individuals, they can leverage the access points that interoperability will provide. And it also motivates new entrants to engage and to shift their focus for modernizing payment trends and becoming innovative in the market. So interoperability also promotes technological innovation among all participants in the ecosystem, and it also maintains the balance between competitions and cooperation and continuous involvement, because interoperability always will create equal playing field, equal playing ground for everyone. It also enhances financial inclusion, because when we become interoperable, we increase access for everyone. Access will be increased, and that at the same time will boost revenue, and that's again increase affordability, because our cost will be minimal. That will again in turn will encourage financial institutions to provide the services with minimum cost. So as it is switch, we focus on these three functional elements for interoperability to function well. The first one is establishing rules and governance. The second one is having a business agreements and incentives, and the operational part, which is a technical integration. So on instant payments for technical integration, we just rolled out ISO 222. And I'm just moving a little bit fast because Mena is staring at me right here. So this circle, as you can see, are the main circles of our instant payment interoperable environment. The first one is we have to, what we did is just come up with a core interoperability engine, because it's the heart of interoperability. As a central switch, it facilitates technical interoperability between different financial systems, enabling them to communicate and transact seamlessly. So we deployed a ISO 222 based real-time payment engine that will help us to expand to a service expansion layer which is adding value to the core services by providing additional features. We do have alias management for user-friendly identifications platforms. At the same time, for facilitating integration, we deployed an API gateway for third-party integrations. And all this, as you can see on list of our service expansion layer, we do have a hosted payment gateway that will enable interoperable environment for e-commerce payments by hosting all financial institutions. And we also added a request to pay engine that will enable merchants to ask for payments for their customers. And we do have also a hosted wallet system. It's a wallet, it's a white label wallet that will enable financial institutions to own their own wallet in a unified form. And the other one is we also provide a shared switching service. And we do have also API gateway for third-party integrations. So, and the third circle or layer of the platform is a use case arena, which encourages a practical applications of interoperability that will connect all of the technological side of the platform with the real-world financial solutions. So we enable in the different use cases. The first one is enabling the person-to-person use case, the person-to-merchant use case, and on the ecosystem circle, that includes all stakeholders, the bankers, fintech companies, government programs, consumers that will benefit from the interoperable network established by the national switch. So financial service providers, PSOs, PIIs, microfinance institutions, all of this will be part of the ecosystem. Just to show you the roadmap to an interoperable the platform, which is instant payment switch. Now we launch it, the phase one is already launched. We started with the main infrastructure, which is that includes different kinds of products. The PKI and the message security is also enabled. The push payments, that's P2P, person-to-person, instant-based transfers is also enabled. The interoperable QR code is also enabled. And we will enable request to pay bulk payment on instant infrastructure rail as we go along in a very near future. So there are different kinds of use cases that we will roll out. So these use cases, some of them are person-to-merchant payments, and some of them are business-to-business payments. So our customers can use smartphones. They can scan a QR, or they can use issuer apps. They can also use feature apps, feature phones to use the platform, which is they can utilize USSD, and they can use whatever means of electronic device they have, like different kinds of laptops, PCs, in a web portals, which is internet banking, to get these all use cases or services on instant payment rail. So over-the-counter that we call is an interoperable static QR that can also be used. So we can apply it in time criticality. For example, some of the payments might be non-time critical, some of the payments might be time critical. So time critical, we meant it as it has to be paid in a certain period of time. For example, utility bill payments, if not paid, so the value will increase and penalties might occur. So it will entertain all those kinds of payments. So payment amount can be also be full payments, installment based, and partial payments. So the mode of interactions for this will be, it can be in store, physical, or online, or online purchases. So the flow of the payments can be customer based or merchant initiated. When a customer based payments happen, it can be utilized with a QR code that's static or dynamic. On the merchant side, the merchant itself can send a request for payment. So all these use cases can be enabled. All of those use cases that we envision, the mobile top-ups, the online payment side, and the proximity payments can also be enabled. I think this will take time to explain, so let me just fast forward. So So this is the static QR flow. So any customer can approach a merchant for QR code to using a national standard QR codes using any of the financial institutions device. They can scan a QR, they can input the payment total that the merchant tells it, and the customer will authorize the payment. The customer receives the confirmation. So the merchant will be informed that the funds has been transferred on instant basis, and the merchant hands over the merchandise at the end. So this is just a generic and basic flow of a static QR code, and the second one will be a dynamic QR code that the customer can also utilize, whether with an online merchant or a physical merchant, a dynamic QR code can be applied.
Sorry, we're running out of time. We're
All right.
actually over by over 10 minutes now.
Sure. The other one is the central directory services. I think we'll catch up with one-to-one discussion. I think, yeah. Thank you very much.
He's going to be focusing on presenting on the topic of implementing instant payments in Ghana. Mr. Archie has serves as the CEO of Ghana Interbank Payments Settlement Systems, GHI PSS Limited, a subsidiary of the central bank aimed at transitioning Ghana into electronic payments society. Since joining in 2007 as the general manager for the projects and business development, Archie has overseen key initiatives including the implementation of EasyWitch, check code line clearing, Ghana Automated Clearing House, and the National Switching and Processing System. Please help me welcome Mr. Archie to the stage.
Very good morning to everyone. Deputy Governor, I've just been informed that I have maximum 7 minutes to put everything that we have done in the last 17 years together. So, very quickly, I think Mina has done justice to us to actually inform you as to some of the products that we started with. Our journey started in 2006 when we felt there was a very large unbanked, and we did a research to find out exactly what the reasons were. And it stems from connectivity, safe homes, KYC, or the IDs needed for a safe bank account, which wasn't present at the time. So we opted to address the informal sector. We went for a biometric smart system, that in order to gain a full-fledged account, you be asked a few questions and all your fingerprints are taken and they are stored on the card, and going forward you use your fingerprint to authenticate. We then modernized the check clearing system, which used to take about 1 week to 2 weeks to clear, to same day and next day as we have now. We moved on to the check ACH, etc. As we speak, we have same day, next day, and we've just introduced the ACH near real time, which takes about 15 minutes for all bulk payments to be cleared in Ghana. It's a very natural journey, similar to what you've been through. We then moved on to modernize the the clearing, the card system, which we christen ours GH Link. So as we speak now, we have our own local proprietary card system, and all the ATMs, the point of sale, and the e-commerce, as Ebenezer said, they are all fully interoperable in the country. Our instant rails started a bit sooner than yours. We started in 2015. The first was the GIP that linked all the banks together. And we realized that after we had introduced the GIP, we very quickly realized that we had two systems in Ghana. The eSwitch system, which we introduced in 2008. We now have a fully interoperable banking system, which we christened GH-Link. And mobile money at that time was being offered by the banks, the telcos. They started somewhere around 2009. And there was no need for GIPS to also implement a mobile money wallet for the country. So what we did was we came out with an interoperable mobile money platform, so you are able to send mobile money transactions between themselves. We then move on to introduce in 2020 our universal QR code, and in 2022 we came up with a bank-wide wallet because we felt the telcos were the only players who were participating in the mobile money arena, and the banks were not at all. So we came up with a bank-wide one that all banks subscribed to. For the sake of time, this slide talks about the eSwitch platform in detail, and the next one also talks about the GIP, which I mentioned earlier on. You can see on the left-hand side that is very inclusive. All the universal banks are part of it. Our savings and loans are part of it. And the rural banks, 147 rural banks, they are all part of it. So nobody is left behind. In the telco environment as well, we have the same. It's fully interoperable. And this seeks to talk about the players that are participating in the instant payment rails. The banks are there, the mobile money companies, the fintechs, as well as all the various fund sources. Everybody is playing together, both receiving and also sending. It's important that you insist that they do not only choose to send or to receive, but they do both, which I believe you've taken care of. This is the engine that drives all our instant rails in the country. At the top, you can see the eSwitch. Is it a GIP? Playing which is fully interoperable. On the right-hand side, which is your left-hand side, the eSwitch smart card as well is also fully interoperable. And it's not only interoperable at the ATM point of sale channels, but even at the bank locations, which means I can obtain my eSwitch card from Bank A and I can move into Bank B's facilities and also transact. Because we felt there were instances where some of the banks were not appropriately or widely dispersed. It was in that regard that we used that. And the eSwitch system is being used heavily by government as we speak now. The mobile money side too is also fully interoperable. And then we connected all the three triangles together. So if you choose to operate in the eSwitch environment, you are not left behind. You are still able to transact with someone who prefers the bank environment, and if you prefer the mobile money environment as well. So all the three are fully interoperable, and we call it the financial inclusion triangle. So irrespective of whichever funds your funds reside in, you are able to transact. Looking at the figures, I think I can see better on the screen here than there. You can see, if I'm able to press this, okay, it doesn't show, but you can see that the top talks about when we introduced the GIP. The usage wasn't that great. It was not until we introduced the mobile money interoperability and the two platforms were joined together. So it's very key that you have a fully interoperable platforms, as you've indicated, coupled with the fact, and you can see the projection, that it started rising very, very steeply. On the right-hand side, you can also see the values between the red talks about the values and the blue talks about the volumes. So the volumes are higher in the mobile money environment, but when it comes to value, it's not as high. The bank is where you have most of the value transactions playing. The sudden growth also fueled when we licensed our fintechs to also connect directly to the national switch. So when it comes to usage in the real-time environment, it's important that you do not leave the fintechs behind. We had an unfortunate incident when our government introduced e-levy, and that's what accounts for the plateau, if you look on the right-hand side. When they realized that it wasn't achieving its objective, they reduced it from 1.5 to 1.7, and then the projections started again. So I advise that you don't do same, just leave it, and there are other ways to recruit funds for the government. The GIP transactions from bank accounts again, 2019. You can see the GIP against the mobile money in terms of volume, as I've indicated. Again, on the right-hand side, you can see the projection for yourselves. There's a direct correlation between the volume growth between GIP and mobile money. You see mobile money started growing, and around 2020, e-levy was introduced. It sort of plateaued a bit, and then it started kicking off again when we all kicked against it, and it was reduced to 1%. However, e-levy did not impact bank transactions as much, because the daily limit that was given was enough for bank customers to transact. Right. We introduced our universal QR code, which I'm glad that you've introduced yours yesterday. Very much similar to yours. The code for it you see there is the name of the merchant. It's truly universal. It's a merchant presented, and it operates either on USSD or mobile apps. Ours can be linked to all bank accounts or any mobile money account as well. And it rides on the real-time rails, very much similar to yours. In our case, we also have the black and white bitmarks for those with smartphones to scan. And those without smartphones, we have a corresponding terminal number, if you prefer the USSD, that you can also type. So they act similar. So it's a true universal one. We came up with one standard, and everybody was to comply to it. The key word here is to comply. So you will need support from the regulator to ensure that those who have taken the lead and have introduced their own QR code, they are asked, either incentivized or whatever you have to do to get them to conform to the standard. These are some of the volumes that we have chalked and the QR code. The growth was negative again because of e-levy, and you can see that post e-levy, the growth started increasing. And what we are doing now is going through the pricing model, promotion, awareness, education, etc., to try and drive the usage of the QR. In conclusion, I'll be happy because I've kept to my time. Ghana's inclusive interoperable payment system ecosystem ensures that no one is left behind, ensures participation by all licensed and approved financial institutions, fosters participation by all customer agents in the system. In terms of lessons learned, since you've just introduced yours, I think governance is something that you have to look at. Once the industry embraces it, you realize that you start needing capacity as quickly as possible. Your technology solutions as well must be scoped appropriately. And to increase business growth, it's important that you bring along the fintechs. They are the ones who are currently driving our real-time rails. When we started, I think, if my memory serves me right, it's around 80% to fintechs to 20% to banks. So they are very, very key when it comes to the real-time rails. I'm here with my colleague Kweku Tete. he is a master of the whole real-time reels. I just came to present it and to receive an applause. Thank you very much.
Of fast instant payment systems and expanding adoption of responsible digital payments. So for the interest of time, I'm going to let the panelists themselves introduce themselves on stage, but I will introduce our moderator. Our moderator is going to be Ms. Sabine Mensah. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Ms. Sabine is the Deputy CEO of Africa Nenda. She brings payment systems and mobile money across Africa, the US, and Canada. In her current role, since July, she oversees policy, advocacy, and capacity development through strategic partnerships and through leadership. Previously, as the regional Digital Hub Manager at UNCDF in West Africa and Central Africa for 6 years, she led initiatives in financial inclusion and digital economy, notably driving UNCDF's global digital infrastructure efforts. So please help me in welcoming Ms. Sabine to the stage so she could call up the rest of the panelists. Apologies, she's also going to be presenting.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I know you're going to have to do better than that. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I need some encouragement. I am a bit shy, so thank you. It really is a pleasure to be here. I hope I'm putting this right. I have a fantastic panel. Whenever I have the opportunity to speak, where I have private sector, public sector regulators, I am the happiest woman in the world because it is a perfect forum to hear it all. But before going into it, I want to give you a snapshot of the landscape of instant payment systems in Africa as part of the work that we do at Africa Nenda. Okay? So we've heard a lot about instant payment today. I want to let you know that we make a difference between instant payment and inclusive instant payment. And I thought it was important to just flag the difference between the two. So instant payment, you know, you have push payment, real time, 24/7 all year. Would it be inclusive for us? There are several components, and I want to highlight a few of them. One is for us, it has to enable low value transaction. If I want to send 100 beer, if I want to send 50 beer, whatever it is, the system has to enable it. And it has to also be low cost because the competition is cash. So it really has to have that component into it. Of course, the payment has to be irrevocable, but I think what's key for us is that the system enables multilateral interoperability. I mean, if I'm poor and I have only one basic phone and one provider I'm dealing with, why would I want to open an account with two other ones so that I can send or receive money to my mother who's in another channel, to my brother who has another provider? It doesn't make sense. So that's where interoperability is the key for us. From a provider side, the system has to really, I think Ebenezer talked about it, leveling the playing field. So it has to enable all licensed financial service providers to access the system and also have an equal input opportunity. And we see for inclusivity, the role of central bank or financial regulator is really key to balance the private-public interest to really focus on financial inclusion goal. So, and at the end of it, from a consumer perspective, of course, accessibility is key, but it's also key that there is a consumer protection mechanism into the system so that if you're doing a transaction and something happened, it doesn't work, or there's a fraud attempt, there is a mechanism for you to complain. There is a system that's going to investigate and provide a resolution to you. So all of that makes it interoperable. So now I'm going to be going fast. We did a landscape. Overall, we have 32 instant payment systems in Africa that are live. 3 of them are regional systems, and you see it where we have PAPS, we have GMAC Pay in Central Africa, and we have TCIB in SADC region. And then we have 29 country system. I think a couple things to really keep in mind here. There are 7 countries that have multiple systems, similar to Ghana. Ghana has multiple systems, but Ghana is the only one that provide the interconnection of these 3 systems as Archie has presented. There's also the fact that there are 17 countries that told us that they were planning to do instant payment system in the future, and 3 regional systems are also in the planning station. Despite all of this, 50% of African population is still in a country, an area where there is no inclusive instant payment system. I'm saying inclusive, and that is the key here. So very important for us to remember that. Transactions is going well, actually, close to 31.5 billion transactions and about 1.2 trillion US dollars in terms of value. But I want to stress, this is even underestimated, because out of the 32 systems, we got data from 22 systems only. So there's a much more transaction flowing throughout our ecosystem. This is a snapshot a bit to show you how we coin what we call the inclusivity spectrum for instant payment system, and we use this framework to really assess all the instant payment systems in Africa in terms of inclusivity. We don't think inclusivity is a yes and no answer. We think it's a spectrum. It's what level of inclusivity you are. And in our assessment, or the framework we propose, we have a basic level where at minimum, you do what cash does for us. I'm able to buy something, I'm able to pay somebody. And when you go to a progress level, that's where we feel it starts being inclusive, really, because you have interoperability, you have also the central bank playing the governance role, and you have the participation of all the licensed service players. In our mind, there's actually an aspirational level, which we call mature inclusivity, and in that level, instant payments are providing all the use cases. You can send money to somebody, you can pay businesses, government can send you social payment, you can pay government services, business MSMEs can also send money, they can pay suppliers, so it's a whole digital ecosystem that's enabled. And it's also include in that perspective in terms of maturity, a really transparent system for consumers in terms of a recourse mechanism, and it has that affordability, low cost component. So let's see. When we put all the countries in there, and I hope you will receive this presentation so you can see where the countries are. This is based on information we had up to June 2023, and it's also based on information that was shared with us. So there are a lot of countries, sometimes you see a not rank, it's either we don't have the information or the system has one of the use cases in basic but not 2. And actually, I'm very happy to tell you that there's a lot of movement for the 2024 report. We've started collecting data, and I'm very happy that ET-Switch is going to be somewhere. We'll let you surprise when we push the report, but a lot of inclusivity has grown through the system. Yulebesh and your team wanted to say thank you for sharing the data, and enabling us to do a better report for this year. What's it? It was important for us. I am a woman. I stand for the voice of all women that are not present here and that are present here to really stress the importance of women inclusivity into the work that's being done. We all know about the barriers, whether they are physical barriers, whether they are not having the phone, not having an ID to register for a financial account, and not having the ability to even open the account. But there's also, from a system perspective, making sure that accessibility is there, making sure that affordability is there, making sure that we are leveraging eKYC, and we are also leveraging last mile female agents to talk to other women. So those are all the barriers that we see in the ecosystem. And our recommendation to all the stakeholders is really to make sure that you're expanding the use cases. And I've seen here the presentation with Ethiopia, where we're really seeing the interoperability and the merchant payments with the QR code. Those are all instances that can really improve access to the system. It is important also for us that you make sure that you are at the highest levels of standards, and I know there's been mention here of transition to ISO 222, which is great because it enables more flexibility in the messaging that's under your core infrastructure. There's also for us, when you're looking at value proposition, to look at it from two ways. There's a customer centricity perspective. What's the value for customer for me to move from cash business and leveraging digital? It has to be a much better value proposition, otherwise I stay with cash. There has to be value also for the other providers, the fintechs, the startups that are bringing inclusivity, innovation into the ecosystem to participate in that system. So finding the right value proposition for all. I think that's my last slide, so I'm close to the 7 minutes, so give me a little bit of leeway. Ebenezer took all my time earlier. So for us, for instant payments and to really play its critical role as the payments layer in digital public infrastructure, there are key things that collectively we need to work on. From a regulatory and policy environment, we really have to make sure that it supports an inclusive environment, and that means for us, again, making sure that you are leveling the playing field, allowing all stakeholders and license providers to participate, and making sure that the consumer protection guardrails are in the system. There's also value for us, the consumers, interoperability, low cost, access, recourse. There's value for the providers to come into the system, open loop interoperability, and then there's a sustainability piece in the ecosystem to make sure that the digital inclusive payment system and infrastructure we are playing, it's an infrastructure that's going to drive scale in the future and also enable innovation and inclusion of all of stakeholders. So thank you very much. That would be Ame Segenalu. All right.
So now we get to have the panel session. So since you're moderating, you may stay on stage and
thank you very much. So may I call Solomon, please join me. Archie, AI, join me. I thought I'd do that. Azlina, please join me. Am I missing? Ebenezer, you're with me. Oh no, so Yelebesh, sorry. We have Yelebesh, and I think I'm missing someone. Oh, we're good. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
you get 30 minutes for your panel discussion. So please try as best as you can to keep your responses short. And we won't be having a Q&A after this. It's just a panel discussion. So
yeah, I'm so glad because what you're saying goes to the panelists, not me, because this one I'm not speaking. I am just facilitating. So
fantastic.
Glad to hear that. Wonderful. So should I also sit there, right? Can I have a mic? I'm going to put my timer and I'm looking at my panelists. I know each of you, and I hope you will forgive me for being abrupt if I cut you off. You know, she's managing time furiously. So thank you very much. Yelebesh, we are in Ethiopia. We've seen what the work that ET Switch has done and really the dynamic ecosystem ongoing here in Ethiopia. So I want to start with you, if you allow me. I think it's important for us to understand how ET Switch collaborated with the various stakeholders, including financial institutions, the regulator, of course, businesses, to provide consumers with choice through interoperability. So, to you.
All right. Good morning again. Thank you, Sabine. Now, when it comes to the national switch, like ET Switch, which is owned by the financial institutes who compete in their own landscape. But when it comes to the national switch, they cooperate to establish the national switch to serve their common purpose and enhance financial inclusion. So how did this collaboration come to the reality? There are actually four issues to be addressed when we talk about the collaboration. The first one is the trust issue. When these banks, MFIs, payment instrument issuers, and the pesos come together, how is the trust between these institutes when they establish one company that is satisfy all their needs? So the first thing that we did is there must be the common playing field, then a common participation criteria. There is a participation criteria. There is a clear participant agreement that shows and fulfills the interest of all participants, where there is no dominancy by one of the participants, where there is no any issue that affects any participant. There is the first aspect. The second one is the economics issue. How are we going to establish and what is the role of the national switch and what the role of each participant? And it's established as a share company, initially with equal share, so that there is no any dominancy with one institute, and a fair pricing criteria. When it comes to the pricing, we follow the participatory approach in setting up the pricing. We come up with the pricing, discuss with the financial institute, and then whether this pricing is affordable or not, it has to be also approved by the central bank. Because when we say that pricing, the parties who come up with the pricing are represented in the pricing development, but there is another party, which is the consumer. The consumer protection will be handled by the central bank. And again, we look at, because one of the requirements, and it is clearly stated in the vision, is to make payments simple and affordable. So affordability, which is a key word in financial inclusion. So how can we make it affordable to the end users, the consumers, is also the part that we consider. The third issue that we addressed is the technology. Technology all required for the interoperability, the infrastructure, the platforms, and making sure that the technology that we deployed is secured technology, and that allows everyone and treats everyone fairly and equally are the technology and the standards that we provide. And the last issue that we addressed is the regulatory, which is already, there is the payment system proclamation and the associated directives that we have to comply to those. So if these four aspects are well managed, the collaboration and cooperation works very well. That's how switch is successful, and we become and playing key role in this thing.
Oh no, it's okay. Thank you. Yulevesh, thank you very much. Technology, ecosystem player, consumer, and a regulator, and having all of these in mind while you're driving. I think I'm going to go to Archie, as we have also another switch implementer from the country. Archie, maybe you can share with us quickly, if you can, because I'm looking at time. He's our host, so I can't push him. But you are my brother, I can push you. So please, can you share with us how you've ensured inclusivity in that financial inclusion triangle that you have presented a bit earlier as you were building instant payment system, particularly for individual, for businesses, and also for the government to interact with all of us?
Thank you very much, Sabine. As you've rightly identified the users of the system, we at GIPS, we have ensured that one, the central bank is also connected to the national switch. The central bank plays a dual role, one as a regulator, and they are also a customer of ours. All banks are connected. All the mobile money companies are also connected. The savings and loans are also connected, as well as all rural banks. They are all connected to the system. As I mentioned earlier, the fintechs are very key. So what we have done is to come out with a licensing regime for all fintechs, and we have classified them under 3 categories. The top is the enhanced license, and they are the only category allowed to also link into the national switch. In so doing, all the individuals, the merchants, corporates, and government, they all have funds residing in all these entities, and nobody is actually left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh yes, I'm getting there. I thought, both of you mentioned the critical role that the regulator is playing, and I'm very happy to have Solomon on the panel with us. Maybe I can start by one of the things that we've mentioned a bit into the presentation, the consumer protection. How do we build that trust that Yilibesh was talking about, and making sure that the system is protected? So I wanted to ask you, from a regulator's perspective, how do you best inform these consumer protection guardrails to make sure that the system providers are indeed provided an ecosystem where the consumer is fully protected and that these recourses are ongoing?
Thank you, Sabine. Good morning, all. So consumer protection is a very important aspect in digital payments. So from the regulatory perspective, is always the top agenda together with like security, reliability of the system. The consumer needs to be also protected, so that we always keep in one of the top agenda when we always think about the regulation. So for example, recently the central bank has set up a directorate or a work unit that follows the consumer protection practice in the market. That move also it will be also one of an important tool to protect the consumer. The other is ensuring the transparency during the service offering, and it's also very important to have treating all consumers equally, and having of well-designed and function call center where the the customers are reporting their disputes or whatever. So that is what we are considering. The other is affordability in terms of price. So this is a big challenge, of course, in the market, because if we follow in a competitive market, so we don't need to have approved the price of every player in the market. However, we have to ensure affordability. So it's not common in Ethiopia to approve the price of every service providers, but we are very keen in terms of interoperability. So we have to approve it, and we have to look into its affordability, and we always engaged with the national switch to discuss it, and to say now, well, even we are pushing them to reduce the amount of price that they are currently charging. You see, so this is how we are approaching the market to ensure the consumer protection, affordability, and its inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You do this right? Okay, got it now. Thank you very much, Solomon. You know, the whole idea was to enable a discussion and thinking about the responsible digital payments. We've talked about interoperability, we've talked about consumer protection, talked about enabling all stakeholders to come in. Haslina, I wanted to ask you, and you just told me you also, Haslima Idris, AI, you're called, so I'm gonna call you AI. While we're talking about all this, I think there's a key one also that comes to mind is the data, and how do we engage with data with respect to data privacy, and how do we address consumer data protection and uphold the rights while we're looking at instant payment systems that drive really a lot of data, and how do we leverage that? So please, maybe you can intervene on that.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm from Malaysia. Actually, Malaysia is actually a tiny country in Asia, Asia is actually the largest continent, as you all know. We are kind of like 3.6 times smaller than Ethiopia in terms of population, right? We embarked on digital payments interoperability since 2019. It was at the cusp of COVID-19 period, right? And during that time, when we first started out having an interoperable QR, the biggest issue was actually around data privacy, especially around fraud, scam, cyber attacks, right? So we've already dissected it into that particular quadrants, simply because we now know a little bit more insights since 2019 around the behaviors when it comes to infiltration of data. Now, the first thing about the difference between scams and fraud is that scams are actually man-made. Fraud is actually something that's technology-based, so cyber, right? Incidence of likelihood of happening is actually more in scams than in fraud, right? From a percentage point of view, by magnitudes. Now, what happens on data privacy at the broadest level? Now, in our country, what we have done is that we've adopted what we call a whole of country approach. The very first level is actually you need to have data privacy laws. So we have a Personal Data Protection Act. There's actually a difference between data user, data provider, data owner. And of course, there's data stewardship. What do you do with that data? What is the consent and how's the consent obtained? How does it get erased? How does it get treated, right? So that's at the broadest level. Take it one level down, at the central bank level, there's actually banking secrecy. Banking secrecy treats customer data at the highest level of confidentiality. And underneath it, there's actually a management of customer information policy document that's issued by the central bank. Underneath it is actually the scheme rules that we have across all our products. So whoever who becomes a participant of PayNet's products, be it from online banking to online transfers to bill payments to QR, everybody is subjected to some kind of data privacy laws, and there are repercussions to it. And from that particular point of view, you take it to a level down. What happens in grievance? You need to be extremely transparent and extremely responsible. How do you do that? Any form of grievance must be directed to the provider of that particular digital payment. So if it is a wallet, then go to your wallet. If it is an app, go to your app. If it is a bank, go to the bank. That's the first level of recourse. If that fails, it goes to the central bank. If that fails, it goes to an ombudsman scheme. If that fails, you go to the court. So that clarity in terms of how you approach data breaches and the whole gamut that comes with it in terms of the implications of data breaches, that gives us that level of certainty and therefore an uninterrupted growth in digital payments. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So again, distinction between fraud and scams, which has an impact on the trust from the consumer perspective and of course adoption from a consumer side. Definitely well suited. We are in Ethiopia. Yesterday I saw a fantastic presentation on what has already been achieved in the digital statistics that Solomon had shared. But Yilabasha, I'd like to ask you, it is a very populous country. You have this switch that's already on and you are on a journey with the interoperability. What are some of the strategies, initiatives that you're going to be putting in place to even accelerate the promotion of financial inclusion in Ethiopia with what you've been able to build already?
All right. Thank you, Samit. Almost all initiatives that we have contributes for the financial inclusion, actually. When we come up to develop our strategy, the first 5-year strategy in 2020, there were key elements and goals that we consider. One, at the national switch, what we have to do. Those already stated in the profile and presented by Abinader. And the second one that we looked at is alignment with the national strategies. When we look at the national strategies, Digital Ethiopia 2025, the National Digital Payment System Strategy, and the Financial Inclusion Strategy. So in the Financial Inclusion Strategy, when we develop a time of even strategy development, we look at how can we align with the financial inclusion strategy. So in order to enhance financial inclusion, and we came up with a list of initiatives. As you know, one of them is digitization by itself. It contributes for the financial inclusion. And then reducing the cost and making it affordable is the key for the financial inclusion. So we came up with initiatives that we can provide to all financial institutions that can avoid barrier to entrance. For instance, new financial institutions, banks, MFIs, payment instrument issuers, or pesos, when they come to the market, one of the challenges for them is fulfilling all required infrastructure and platforms. We're already there in the market, and then we can provide them the shared infrastructure so that they can go to the market and provide the service. As you know, we don't directly serve merchants or end users or consumers. So we enable the players so that they can directly serve the consumers and bring the financial inclusion. So we provide them platforms. One of the platforms that we provide is the switch, the ATM management, the POS. And again, we came up with a new initiative of providing the white label wallet. That is the one that can really bring impact on a financial inclusion. So we provide a white label wallet to financial institutions so that they can provide to the end user, to the consumers. Because we are providing that solution, and they are not investing on the solution, there's no capex, and we're also reducing the operational cost. So at the end, the end result will be reducing the pricing that the service will be provided to the consumer. The other one that we came up is this QR standardization. See, from yesterday's presentations, the one that will transform the digital payments and really help us to achieve financial inclusion is a QR payment. You know, in the last presentation by National Payment Corporation of India, when they implement the QR payment, they were able to enable 305 million merchants accept points using QR. Think, it's almost 1/5 of the population of India. They are merchants, so they were enabled to that. But if you consider the POS, it's very limited. You cannot. So we are bringing QR so that we can bring the financial inclusion. And the other one that we are bringing is we are enabling all use cases using inclusive instant payment system. You like inclusive? Yes. Yeah. So when we design, even we followed the inclusive instant payment principles in our instant payment platform that we are currently bringing. And the third one that also contributes substantially for the financial inclusion is the National Payment Gateway. Actually, as you know, there are different challenges. We are enabling only the payment component, but the e-commerce and the payment gateway is not only the payment component. The whole ecosystem has to work very well. Sorry. For instance, the delivery has to work well. Allow you buy some item online, you are not happy with the quality, you want to return it, so that there must be a law that can support you, and I have to be happy with the law. The merchants who present us the products, they have to provide the detailed specification of the product so that when you complain about it, there is something that you agreed with them. There is a terms and conditions. And then there must be e-receipt as well. So the whole ecosystem has to work. It's not only the payment gateway, but we are bringing and enabling only the payment component because that's our role. That's the area that we are coming up with the new initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julebesh, and thank you for opening the door with, the power that MSMEs have in our country, micro, small, medium enterprises to contribute to the economic growth of the country and the connection with e-commerce platform. Aslina, I would really like for you to come in and help us understand how this journey has been in Malaysia and how you've ensured seamless integration with other digital payment services, e-commerce platform, the mobile apps, to make sure that there's an overall consumer experience that's compelling enough for mass adoption.
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, Africa and Asia shares 4 things in common when it comes to e-commerce and digital payments. Now, first, at the macro level, when it comes to economic growth, both our continents is outpacing the global growth, right? We are faster than global GDP, right? That's one. The second one is actually both our continents have got a much younger proportion of generations, population, yeah, than the rest of the world. We're above the global median in terms of young population. So young population by right, I would say the Gen Zs and the Gen A, they are the ones that is kind of like digital native, and therefore they would adopt more of an what you call omni-channel approach, meaning I don't care where I am, I may be in a shop, I may be holding my phone, I may be holding my tablet, I may be on the internet at my desktop. The device must know who I am, the shop must know who I am, right? And my persona must be captured all the time, and I don't want the friction of having to sign on all the time, right? So that is actually a very telling sign, right? A third commonality is that we both have a very strong propensity or projection in terms of e-commerce growth, right? Although Asia and Asia Pacific is actually at the highest level of growth right now, we are actually the largest market for e-commerce. Africa is the highest level projected at I think if I'm not mistaken, 14% CAGR, until 2027. At Asia Pacific, it's only 11%. We are third behind you at the very top and Latin America, right? So that's the third thing that we need to also bear in mind, that makes that landscape very much similar. And when it comes to the entire experience, all of us, and that's the fourth commonality, require customer at the middle, which is again, a principle of inclusive digital payments, right? Designed for the individuals in the middle. Now, when it comes to that kind of landscape, what we're seeing in our country is that because of that, people have a propensity to pay more with their accounts. So there's a higher level of account-to-account growth compared to anywhere else in the region. We are kind of like second behind, if I'm not mistaken, Thailand. But the thing is, our level of that plus mobile app and digital payments, through the device is actually higher. Now, take that into what you're going to do right now from a growth perspective. How does that measure in terms of what we need to consider? There are 3 payment flows that is at hand here. From a user perspective, we need to be looking at the customer perspective, the government perspective, and the business perspective. Each of the 3 has got very different profile, very different needs, very different persona. Now, when we build an app, a product, have that in mind, because not all products is not actually right across the board. Now, for instance, batch payments, as much as we want to promote real-time payments or fast payments or instant payments, batch payments is actually very critical for governments. Why is that important? It's actually for giving handouts, and it's also for salary. Now, when it comes to customers, what they need is actually instant gratification, instant experience to actually enable them to get some kind of rewards, and they are also cost sensitive. So for that matter, if we look at the bigger picture, we need to be aware of not so much free stuff, but value-added services They're prepared to pay for more, but for a better experience through one, single sign-on, two, some kind of rewards that stack to their identity, third, some kind of loyalty that's giving preference to this particular space. Yeah, maybe I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Azlina. I really like the trend where we're going, because Archie is next to you, and I want to ask him, it's also a technology play, right? We see these future technology and trends that are happening. How can we as a continent take advantage of those to ensure that we have this inclusive instant payment system and really enable universal access to financial services?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sabine. I think you are 100% right. We should be looking now at use cases. When you travel around the world now, you hear individuals talking about CBDCs and Bitcoins, etc. We've all rolled out instant pay, and we are not even using it to its full potential. I'm of the strong belief that we should be focusing on the use cases. In Ghana, for example, the remittance companies are now partnering with the fintechs or the banks, so you are able to remit directly into the beneficiary's bank account or mobile money wallet, as the case may be. We should also look at growth strategies. How can we look at pricing to encourage individuals, companies, etc., to embrace our system? When we started with the sender paying, and then we switched it to the receiving institution paying for it. And therefore, the fintechs are able to send freely, and the growth, as you saw, has been phenomenal. So we need to look at a lot of these activities that would support growth to ensure that we have serious impact. We're talking about things like education, promotion, etc. We've, in the last 2 days, looked at the two countries' payment systems evolution. But I've been in Ethiopia since yesterday, and I'm using my Visa card. Why can't I use my GH-Link card in Ethiopia? Why can't I scan? There are loads and loads of Ethiopian restaurants, Ethiopians in Ghana, and equally we have loads of Ghanaians here. Maybe as a challenge, whilst we are waiting for the regional blocks to get their acts together, Ghana and Ethiopia can take the lead, where we can integrate the two switches, and when they are ready, they can come up with the lessons that we have chalked. Similar to what is happening in Malaysia, between Malaysia and Singapore. The key is not the technology, it's the currency exchange. But Malaysia and Singapore, they've managed to find a way whereby they are able to use their local currency to effect payments in other countries. So I think that in terms of how can we leverage on the instant rails in other countries, these are some of the things that we should start embarking on. We keep talking about fighting against cash, fighting against Visa, MasterCard, but we are still using their technology when it comes to inter-country payments. Thank you.
All right, my last question is going to be Vin, just to complement what Archie was saying.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you were mentioning about inter-Africa IPS connectivity. I think that's a brilliant idea, because the thing is that's what's happening in ASEAN. ASEAN is actually a block of 11 countries that Malaysia belongs to. Singapore is one of them, but we're actually already connected to 10 other countries, right? So as a payment rail, we are the domestic payment rail with the largest connection, right? And we are connected to China with both Alipay and UnionPay. What we are seeing is that growth month on month for China has been 29 times. Growth between Thailand is 50%, growth with Indonesia is 87%, and growth with Singapore, which is the latest edition, is 76%. So there's immense opportunity for economic growth if we were to do an interoperable regional QR. And one thing to add as a final point is that both our continents are actually connected to China in a very big way. We are good trading block partners. We have large connectivity. In CDPI's presentation yesterday, EMVCo has got about what 5 million compliant QR, right? EMVCo. Now, when it comes to MPCI, they have about 255 million. But when it comes to Alipay, and I think I was checking the number, it's only 2020 numbers, it's 1.3 billion, right? So if we were to look at it from a bigger picture perspective, there's actually a very good case for us to kind of like harmonize into some kind of protocol, much like how international card schemes work, right? And it will go right across from payment interoperability to consumer redress to payments to exchange rates to even the flows, because it doesn't really make sense to make customized connections. That has been our experience with the 10 countries. Yeah.
Asline, thank you. Asline, thank you very much. I want you to close, Solomon, but she's brought something I need to pull in Yilebesh, and then I'll come back to you. Please bear with me. Yilebesh, and you also mentioned it, Archie. I know that you and Archie, with Africanenda and other CEOs of switches in Africa, have already started brainstorming about that opportunity to interconnect all these platforms across Africa. Maybe you want to share a little bit on that before we go to Sullivan.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have been trying to connect to multiple institutes based on the value that we can get for both parties, actually. Integration with the international card schemes with Visa, MasterCard. And when it comes also to the local one, there are local regional initiatives in Africa. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, and the COMESA CBC, mainly for the COMESA region, looking at the mainly micro and small merchant payments, actually. But these are different initiatives. And when it comes to Africa and Asia, as mentioned, both, the focus is on non-card payment. That's a latecomer advantage. When we look at US and Europe, because already the card infrastructure, ATM and POS, and all around card, the innovation is all around card. But when it comes to Asia and Africa, the latecomer advantage, we can focus on a mobile and other innovative solutions. As she mentioned, those numbers, how those numbers significantly grow is not on card rate. It's mainly on mobile and a QR and small other innovative ones. As she mentioned in China and India. So when it comes to Africa, what can we do? How can we collaborate? We see the European Card Payment Association, in collaboration with the World Bank, to organize the conference and 1.5 yearly. We see the learnings, what are the learnings that we can get, and how is our track. We're on a good track in Africa, and specifically in the national switch, and when it comes in Ethiopia as well, the strategy that the initiatives that are taking off, we're on a good track. But how can we collaborate, and how can we come up with the African standards? And we need to work together, as Archie also mentioned. So recently, we were trying to set up the African Payment Association, and we are inviting all the national switch CEOs, and it's in the inception phase. And thank you for African Inda. So currently we'll string it so that until we take off and clearly setting up the Pan-African Payment Associations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Solomon. No, sorry. Thank you very much, Yilebesh, and I'm going to Solomon. I'm sorry. Solomon, I want to bring something dear to my heart and dear to a lot of the ladies that are here. It's the last one. We are closing. What are some of the policies and regulations that central banks can, propose and force to really tackle the gender gap in access to finance and digital payment to close us off? Good.
Thank you, Savine. I think this topic is the next agenda is on gender equality, and there would be. But now I will take 1 minute to comment on what the agenda that we were discussing. So this African connection and cross-border payment in Africa is very, very important. So is not about the technology, and it requires a political commitment and the regulators' commitment in this regard. So now the growing of the instant payments among African countries is an foundation to interlink our system so that the transaction will flow in cross-border means very easily. For the issue, as Ache was saying, that's the currency, that is a big issue. So now CBDC is coming to tackle that problem, so that we have to work on leveraging of the CBDC in a way that facilitates the cross-border payments. So I suggest Ghana and other countries, so we have to take the lead, as you already mentioned, in order to set up at least on a task force who are going to do on this. The previous thinking was connecting RTGS, which is a kind of risky system that central banks are usually not allowed or take the lead to interface their RTGS because it is the central bank money. But the instant payments they are very easy, and the use cases also very affordable and seamlessly can be integrated with the system. So this is a really interesting point that we need to work on that. Thank you. Thank you, Sabine, and the organizers as well.
Thank you to each and every one of you. Really appreciated your availability for this discussion. I'm going back to you for the rest of the program, Mina.
Thank you so much. So the next session will focus on gender intentionality dynamics and implementing instant payment systems in Ethiopia. The presenter is Leah Dejanu. Leah Dejanu is a gender analyst at UNCDF. She is a community organizer consultant based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Prior to joining UNCDF, Leah spent over 10 years working in complex arenas of intercultural collaboration, community advocacy, engagement, and talent project management. She is committed to building solid and equitable relationships and communication within the public and non-profit sectors. Please help me in welcoming Leah to the stage. Leah, you have 5 minutes. And she will also be doing the panel discussion that follows.
Thank you, Manna. Hi, everybody. I guess it's the afternoon now. So firstly, and also I would like to say, so the gender analyst for this project is my better half, Sawit Tadessa, who's not here, but I'm happy to talk a bit more about WDFI later in my later in my presentation. Before I begin, I actually, since we've been sitting down the whole time, I kind of want us to do a quick exercise. Nothing like jumping jacks, but it's going to be a simple question. Can I get the men to stand up from their seats? And yeah, just take a good look. Take a good look at the room. So from a show of hands, how, okay, now you guys can have a seat. Can I get the women to stand up, please? All right. Who noticed this gap from yesterday? From a show of hands, men and women, please have a seat. Who noticed the gap? I don't see, and it's a lot of women who raise their hands. Thank you. My boss just raised his hand now. Great, thank you, everyone. Can we go back to the presentation? Thank you. So, I like to move around when I present. So, a little bit about the Women's Digital Financial Inclusion Hub. We initially launched in June of 2022. It is under the UNCDF. So I currently work with the United Nations Capital Development Fund, with the Ethiopia team. My wonderful team is here, so happy to see you guys. And I'm specifically leading the project alongside my colleague Zoe Taddese on the WDFI project. It is specifically an advocacy hub where we work closely with regulators, CSOs, private and public sector organizations and companies, where we want to advocate for not only financial inclusion, but digital financial inclusion for women, and adding some gender intentionality in some of the work that we do. Another, I remember Atoi Labes mentioned a little bit about the cross-Asian cultural exchange. So a good thing is that we also, alongside with our partners, Women's World Banking, lead an Indonesia hub as well. So they've both been piloted around the same time. And it was wonderful. We actually managed to also get some of our Indonesian colleagues to come and do a nice cultural exchange and see how we have so many similarities, and also the areas that we differ in, we can fill in those gaps. So the reason why I got everyone to stand up today is because I wanted you guys to get a visual representation about some of the figures that I'll be presenting. The gender gap is not just something that is talked about, it's not just figures, but it's in this room. And when we talk about gender intentional policy, it means that it is embedded in the framework of our organizations, of our companies, even in our homes. So before I begin, I want you guys to ask yourselves, to what extent has there been increased access to usage of financial services in Ethiopia? Which segments of the population are benefiting most from innovation in financial technology, and why? And which types of services are most beneficial to women? So I'll give you guys a couple seconds to think about that as I present. So the importance of access is evident within our sector, but access to finance has been increasing regularly over the years in Ethiopia, which I'm happy to see. Financial institution accounts still lead the way for people in Ethiopia, yet gender gaps do also persist. And the barriers persist. Affordability, accessibility, and lack of documentation drives exclusion. And I also want to add gender norms. Of course, gender norms vary from region to region, country to country. So it's very hard to specify what it is, but they do exist. The division of labor between men and women vary. So that kind of can add a bit of a gap, and especially when it comes to access. But this is kind of some positive figures that I've seen. This is from the Findex data from, I think, 2022. So basically they talk about the increase in financial institution and adoption rates. So luckily, and I think the red arrow points it out, Ethiopia has been on a rise from 2014 all the way up to 2022. So that is something that is optimistic, that should drive our job, for us to do our jobs even more. I also do want to point out that these figures also emphasize the digital financial services that are still lagging behind amongst adults in Ethiopia. I do want to point out as well, so the top point over here mentions ownership of financial institutions and institutional accounts. So with women, of course, we do see, in comparison to the men, we do see around a 20% gap. That's just roughly a rough estimate between 2014 till 2022. So that gap initially was small, but it has gotten broader and wider as time progressed. But then now when it comes to mobile ownership, mobile money ownership, I do want to mention and point out that yes, these figures are fairly close, but there isn't enough sex desegregated data readily available. So it is very tough to kind of emphasize and justify that figure. So when I mentioned earlier about segments, what are the segments defined? So of course, not all Ethiopian women are the same. Everybody has different burdens and tasks and roles in their lives. So this is a figure and a scale that was developed by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Great Impact, but they did talk about the classifications. So segment 1 mentions excluded marginalized, so women that don't have that access and might not have that opportunity as well. Excluded high potential, excluded but high potential, so has the chance to find those access points or has a chance to get access to resources, but just hasn't so yet. Then segment 3, which includes which is included and underserved. So they might have access to these devices or mobile payment or even an account, but are underserved or are not actively using it. And then we have segment 4. So it includes, it means that there are women that are included and not underserved. So women who do have the access and are utilizing those services. And I just want to quickly bring your attention. So I want us to take a look at segments 2, 3, and 4. Especially when it comes to segments 3, where they do have the access, but they're underserved. There is still a slight growth gap between 2017 and 2021. So in comparison to also segment 4, where you see women who have the access do have, initially started at 55. Hello? Okay. Initially started at 55%, but spiked up to 92% due to access opportunities. I also want to point out the GSMA study that emphasizes that there is still that 21% gap in mobile ownership, along with mobile internet ownership. So from the left side, you do see a 21% gap versus also the mobile internet access, which is an 11% gap. So that's just a short presentation. For you guys to have access to some of this information, feel free to scan the code or just approach me later at the end. So just quickly take a scan if you can, and then I'm going to switch to the Great Impact study as well, where you can find all those figures, and you can do further reading on that. But yes, don't worry, I also have these QR codes. All right. So thank you guys for paying attention, and I hope these figures spoke to you. And I also now want to introduce our panelists. I think this is a good segue. These are women that I'm familiar with and have even recently got to know more, and it's been wonderful working with them. Hold on, I'm about to pull up my notes. There we go. Okay. So before we begin, I would like to introduce the panelists. I would like to introduce the program analyst of the AUC, the African Union Commission, Sandy Madonsela. Please come to the stage. Next, I would like to invite the advisor to the Vice Governor of the National Bank of Ethiopia, Weziro Marta Hailemariam. Please come to the stage. And finally, I would like to introduce and present the project expert at UN Women, Sinid Dufuk Adu. Please take your seats and we'll get started. So when we talk about gender intentionality, this session is, of course it's easy to check off quotas and say that there's, 50% women here, but when it comes to gender intentionality and embedding a lot of that in the framework of your organization, what does that look like to you? And this is an open question for any one of you guys.
Thank you very much, Leah. Sorry for that technical challenge. And I'd like to just say good afternoon to everybody in the room. I think briefly, just to answer your question, gender intentionality for the African Union Commission, who I'm representing today, really speaks to the need to mainstream women and the needs of women in any programming, on any activities that we do. So if it's this digital financial conference, for instance, wherever we talk about the challenges, wherever we talk about the solutions, wherever we see how we want to move forward, I think gender intentionality to us means that we are mindful of the specific needs that women have whenever we are forging those solutions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, that was an excellent response. Yes, Wazir Marta, please.
Thank you to invite us this gender specialist gap filling of this in the conference, payment system conference. So in the National Bank of Ethiopia, like other government institutions by law, there is the section to facilitate or to fill the gap gender-related issues. So in the promotion, like when a female can promote from one level to another, they give a rank more than men. So this is one of the gender gap filling for the National Bank of Ethiopia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leah. When we say gender equality, just briefly say that when we devise policies, when we design products or providing services, it needs to consider the practical needs, the practical interests, and the unique needs and interests of women. Otherwise, for example, if you are implementing interventions or designing different services or products, if that service or products are gender neutral, it might even reinforce negative consequences. So before that, we need to see from a gender perspective, we need to ensure that gender issues are really addressed starting from the very beginning at the designing to implementing stage. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to circle back to Sandy. It's okay. I think everyone has their own mic, so yeah. So I want to circle back to Sandy and ask, how can digital financial services be designed with gender intentionality in mind to address the specific needs and challenges of marginalized women? So, for instance, it could be safety features, mobile money access through feature phones, or addressing the digital literacy gap.
Thank you again, Leah. I'll speak mainly from a policy perspective, as that is the mandate of the African Union Commission. And I'd like to make particular reference to something that was said by one of the panelists from a session yesterday. He spoke about the need for policies and regulations to be progressive and stay up to date with changing times. And what does that mean for this particular topic that we are discussing today? Or in the case of gender intentionality, it means that we need up-to-date policies, frameworks, and strict regulations that necessitate the mindful consideration of gender differences, gender challenges, and gender needs whenever financial products and tools are being developed. And I think it goes without saying that the development of these digital financial tools and services alone is not enough for us to reach gender equity. We are trying to include the excluded. So we need to make the transition inclusive as well as attractive. Inclusive by addressing the supply side barriers. So this is inappropriate financial offerings, for instance. Maybe these are products that aren't mindful of the plight of women and therefore fall short in really achieving that gender and financial equity that we are after. And also maybe inadequate or inappropriate distribution channels, and also inadequate digital financial infrastructure, for instance. And then we make it attractive by understanding the needs as well as the demand side and behavioral barriers of women that continue to perpetuate the gender gaps that we observe today. And it would be remiss of me to talk about the need for enabling gender-sensitive policies and regulations without re-emphasizing, and I say re-emphasizing because this has been a common theme that has emerged over the past 2 days, and that's the need for strong data collection. So I think data evidence policy actions lead to evidence-based policy decisions, and it allows for a proactive rather than a reactive response, which is exactly what we need as we endeavor on the path to gender and financial equity. As I mentioned earlier, really the first and most important thing is for the women to, is for us to understand what the needs of the women are, where the gaps lie, and then we can forge those digital financial solutions and tools that really meet the needs and the challenges of the marginalized women. Another key element towards the achievement of financial and gender equality is financial literacy and financial and digital literacy training. And if I could shout this one out so loud that it echoes through the room, I really would, because I cannot stress enough how important it is. As we continue, or in addition to addressing the access barriers and challenges, we also need to address the usage challenges. So it's important for women to understand how to use these tools, to understand especially how to use them to empower themselves. And so that means how do I access credit? What is insurance and how can it help me? And also how can I build my savings? I'm a little bit shy to admit this in this forum, but I myself personally have not made the full transition to digital. And it's not because I'm ignorant, it's not because I don't want to, but there are a few of the offerings that still give me anxiety today, and a few of them that I don't know how to use. I am willing to make the full transition, but I think with a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more information, I'd be that much more comfortable to make the leap. And if that's my story as somebody who works in this space, imagine what the case is for a marginalized, excluded woman who has never in her life received any capacity building on the importance of digital financial transition, really. So again, I cannot stress enough how important capacitating and training our women on this really is. And as I round up, I'd like to bring it all together by saying that gender equity and financial equity can only be achieved through a group effort. So what this requires is that the necessary stakeholders join forces and work together for collective impact. So if, for instance, we understand, based on what I've said right now, that our pain points are inadequate policies, inadequate data, as well as low financial literacy, then we need to get those particular solution barriers in this room and in rooms like this so that they forge the solution and charter the way forward. And so my question today is, are these people in the room? And if they are in the room, are they going to leave this conference with a clear instruction of what they need to do to bridge the gap, particularly the gap in gender equality? And if they are leaving with that instruction, how? How are we going to hold them accountable to make sure that they do indeed deliver on impactful change and measures? And on that note, I would like to make mention and bring to the attention of everybody in the room a particular initiative of the African Union Commission. It's called the Wi-Fi Initiative, and it's a partnership framework that seeks to do exactly that. Leverage off of the efforts that are already being done by financial and economic players, or financial and economic inclusion players on the ground, and really bring everybody together to synergize and partner together for greater impact and scale. The initiative has 3 objectives. The first objective is to enhance the income of women and youth. We have 2 demographics that we are mandated to empower. So those are women and youth. So it's to enhance their income through access to job opportunities as well as access to entrepreneurship. So what this entails is having in place quotas that ensure that there are preferential spots reserved for women in employment and preferential spots reserved for women entrepreneurs wherever opportunities arise. The second objective holds us all in this room accountable, the financial sector, and really speaks to the need for the development of innovative financial products that are accessible, affordable, and available for our African women and youth. So this requires them sometimes being low cost or no cost, just fully mindful of the plight of our marginalized women and youth. And then finally, the third objective speaks to the creation of enabling policies and regulations that bring everything together and help us to gain momentum on our journey to universal financial inclusion. Usually, I would share a QR code that gives you access to our database or allows you to sign up to this initiative and partner with us as the AUC. Unfortunately, today I was unable to screen it, but if you do find me during the course of the day, I do have it on my phone, on me, and you can kindly scan it off of me and fill out the very short registration form so that you join part of the African Union database, and then we can work together to enhance financial and specifically digital financial inclusion of African women. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. That was very, very insightful. And I do want to, I guess, this is a good segue into Wezuro Marta, and I guess what regulators, and from the regulators' perspective, how, beyond access, how can financial service providers leverage digital financial services to promote financial literacy and usage among women and marginalized groups? So when I say marginalized, we're talking about grassroots women, women that are considered the last mile, the different micro-saving incentives, financial education bundles, and with mobile wallets. What are those examples that we can state?
Yes. Thank you. Let's come first that all we have has an account. Just start with, without an account, there is no digitalization and also instant payment. So in the National Bank of Ethiopia, let's give an overview that the financial inclusion strategies are enabling environment to have access to this unserved peoples or gender gaps. So when we see the first 2016 up to 2021 financial inclusion strategy, the focus was access to finance with quality and affordability. So in this case, the strategy has reviewed, assessed the barriers that have, when we studied this inclusive digital financial inclusions. So usage is one of pillars that identified the gaps that we feel the gender equality in the financial sector. Overall, the target was increasing the level of financial inclusion from 22% to 60%, but unfortunately, when the first this financial inclusion strategy, we didn't meet this 60%, but the level becomes 35%. But in the second 2021 or 2025, up to 25 financial inclusion strategy, which are initiative taken by the National Bank of Ethiopia, was focused on underserved people, regional also included. So in this case, the deepening of digital financial services is one of focus that we are given in the strategy to serve these unserved people. So overall, the target for this financial inclusion is increasing all over the financial level to 70%. Currently, it's now 46%, the level of inclusion overall. So we give focus for gender, like a program. We have one program, which is a women financial inclusion program, and also regional council program to address regionally. So when we come to this literacy and also other that may first to have access to women's or underserved people, there is a cross-cutting also, the program, financial education and consumer protection. So in this program, we are guided by the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, which is launched and also approved by the board, and also consumer protection that Solomon previously mentioned. There is a directive separate from like another directive. We opened the directorate to facilitate this strategy to implement consumer protection and national financial education strategy. So recently we launched also financial education module, which all financial sectors, all banks, microfinance, and also digital financial service providers can use it as a standard. So in this regard, actions also have to implement this, like creating of awareness for digital financial services and regional financial literacy, and also launching that I said before, specifically for women's financial education. And another is promoting Sharia compliance issues. So for these issues, like as a person or as a National Bank of Ethiopia, our role is to regulate and issue directives to implement these actions. So we provide direction or directives to all financial institutions to use these directives and also strategies and implement with some vendors or supporters that were here and implement these directives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's good to know that all these services are available as well. And it almost acts as an accountability tool as well to have some of these services and educational opportunities provided. So, no, thank you very much. I also want to ask Sinedu, from the UN Women perspective, I think I would really like to ask, how can digital innovation and financial services tackle socio-cultural norms hindering women's financial participation in Ethiopia? And that can look like many things, but from your experience, you know, as acknowledging the diverse ecosystem, culture, regions that, you know, compiles Ethiopia, what would that look like?
Okay, thank you. As Leah presented the data on the financial inclusion, we have seen that there is a progress. The financial inclusion for both women and men has been increasing from time to time. However, there is a huge gap. There is a huge gender gap in accessing, using, and also benefiting from the financial service outcomes. So in that case, one of the major root cause is this the deeply rooted socio-cultural norms that embedded in our minds, that it affects all sectors, those who are involving in the financial market system. So in that case, even when we see the data from the socioeconomic survey, it shows that while women's account ownership increases from time to time, but still when we see the gender gap is still widening. Especially, for example, when we see the 2016 data, it was like 8%, but when it comes to 2019, it becomes 16, it's almost double. So it showed that there is a huge gender gap in accessing financial services, particularly the digital services. So in that case, one of the major root causes is the socio-cultural norms. So one of the things is that we need to recognize all actors in the financial system need to recognize that these socio-cultural norms, how it affects the service provision, how financial institutions are providing services, what kind of products, are they really addressing the unique needs of women? Are we really touching their practical situations? So in this case, the digital financial inclusion or the digital financial services play a great role in achieving gender equality in financial inclusion because it directly addresses the socio-cultural norms. For example, there is a time poverty among women. Many women are engaging their time, they invest more of their time in doing domestic activities. They invest more engaging in unpaid care and domestic activities. This prevents them to access or to travel to financial institutions, to get information, and also being networking like that of men, to get information and so forth. So these digital financial services, it addresses such kind of time poverty or shortage of time. And also in another case, there is a mobility constraints that we believe that particularly when you go to rural parts, the husbands may not allow women to travel, or they might not send them alone. They want to be with them while traveling to financial institutions and so forth. So in that case, no need of traveling to financial institutions. So the digital service plays a pivotal, crucial role in addressing such kind of cultural norms. And in addition to this, the decision-making role that women are mainly, those decision-making roles are mainly uptaken by men in the household. So in that case, when we give them such opportunity to access the digital financial services, we are empowering them to make a decision on their own income or on their own resources. So in different scenarios, the financial digital services plays a great role in addressing these socio-cultural norms. So we need to recognize how we're going to address those norms while we provide services, while we design policies, while we design initiatives or interventions in order to ensure that there is inclusivity, in order to ensure that all are benefiting from the financial service outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senadu. Excellent points. And I think I really want to segue, and we do know the gaps. We're fully aware, the figures support it. But what are some supportive and conducive environments? I know, Izero Martha, you always talk about that. Creating a conducive environment for gender intentional frameworks. But, you know, like I want to bring up SACCOs, for instance. How are SACCOs or different microfinance institutions, savings and credit cooperatives, how is that changing women's lives financially? And even, let's go even further into, you know, the relevance of having female agents. How would that contribute to bridging the gap? And yeah, whoever, this one is an open question, so whoever feels compelled to answer, by all means.
you. As a regulator, just I said before, there has to be a law. Data law is first, and also national digital ID. So we work together with these institutions like National Digital ID program to include all, to have all customers or bank account owner with financial institutions this digital ID. This is one of the initiatives that included in the National Digital Payment Strategy and also in the Financial Inclusion Strategy. So another is the gender disaggregating data. This also has included in the strategy, and also we work out as a project with UNCDF and start the project implementing. Now it's currently under awarding of the supplier or the vendor to give these services to our project. So in this, when we implemented the gender classification, currently we are now collecting data manually through computers. So we decide or see how the gender gap is growing or decreasing by seeing this gender classification data. So it's important for us when implemented clearly this data to make decisions or to propose any gender-centric use data for the policy makers, and also use this as a directive to implement all financial institutions. So this is one. The other is maybe when we have got this gender classification data or specific, we also has instruct or promote to do exercise or design the financial institutions, especially digital payment service providers, to specifically know where is the problem of gender, because the digital payment service providers are the ones that are engaging unserved financial or unserved gender classifications. So this maybe help them to identify where the problem is, and also to solve the gender-centric use cases. This is, I think, my reflection on this.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone that would like to elaborate? I see you reaching for the mic. Okay. And yeah.
Okay, I just want to reflect on the need for the female agents. Actually, it's becoming a debate that do we really need female agents in providing such services? We are seeing that even the data, the evidence showed that we need to have the female agents, because, for example, in Muslim-dominated community, the women might not be comfortable to discuss about or to contact a man to discuss about to get services. And also her husbands might not be interested. So in that case, the female agents need to be there. And also, while we are talking about empowering women, why we are not giving such opportunity for them? So the female agents are very important in order to ensure that there is inclusivity, and also in order to ensure that all are benefiting from the financial inclusion.
Thank you, Sanadu. That was powerful last statement. Sandy, do you have any reflections?
Thank you, Leah. I would specifically like to reflect on the savings and credit cooperatives. In various regions of the continent, they're known in different names or under different names. Where I come from, they're called Stokvels. I think in some places in West Africa, it's Isusu. I'm not sure what it's called here in, what is it called? Good. So I think we understand that really it's dominated by women, those savings and corporate schemes. And for the most part, it's really just you save, you receive. There's no wealth creation, or the empowerment element is lacking. If it is there, it's very, very, very minimal. So I think how we can leverage digital payment systems, for instance, to assist these women to move from that hand-and-mouth saving approach to one that's more wealth-creating is, if, for instance, they are to all make their contributions into one account, that account earns interest during the duration that the money is being held, oftentimes that's 12 months, then they can learn that, oh, money actually grows within this 1 year period, whether the amount is substantial or not. I think it's just that understanding, that concept of money growing. And then we can further capacitate them to maybe pool funds, to purchase or build schools, and you know, it goes beyond that. But I think that is really a key and low-hanging fruit that we could leverage in terms of bringing that group into the digital financial sector and market towards women empowerment and gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. And that is, I'm not going to keep you guys any longer because I know everyone's hungry. So let's wrap this panel discussion. Thank you, and give our wonderful panelists a round of applause. Yes. And, you know, I want to mention one last note. If you want to know a bit more about gender intentionality, or even where to start, you have wonderful women around this entire event space. So please feel free to approach any of us, and we are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Wonderful to see a full panel of women. As Leah said, I'm not going to stand in the way of your lunch, but I did want to reflect really quickly, because I recently had seen the National Bank had launched Newfin, right? It's network of Ethiopian women in finance. Highly encourage all women here to definitely go on there and join. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for trainings and networking and mentorship with women that are in the financial sector. So make sure you join Newfin at newfin.org. And then a quick reminder, lunch is ready, of course. We have an hour, so I would like everyone here to be back here around, I don't want to say around, that's such an Ethiopian thing to say, right? We'll get back here at 2:20. So I'm cutting out a little bit of lunch. But keep in mind, the governor will be here this afternoon to have that fireside chat that we didn't get to have yesterday. So your questions have been received, and the team will be sharing that with the governor. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy lunch. If you haven't gotten a chance to get a ticket for lunch, make sure you approach the ladies in black t-shirt. So bon appétit and malkam misa.